I was betrayed at my own home. My parents threw my sister a party and acted like I did not exist. My own grandma had been keeping a secret the whole time. And when that secret finally came out, everything changed. Stay with me because this ending is going to surprise you. I am going to start from the beginning. I want you to understand exactly what happened, because this is not just a story about a party. This is a story about being invisible inside your own family. It is about smiling through pain that nobody else could see. And it is about the one person who saw me clearly even when everyone else looked away. My name is Sarah. I was 23 years old when this happened. I lived at home with my parents and my younger sister, Maya. Maya was 21. We shared a house, shared a kitchen, and shared parents who were supposed to love us equally. I believed that for a long time. I really did. I held onto that belief the way you hold onto something when you are scared of falling. Growing up, I was the quiet one. Maya was loud and funny and always the center of every room. She had this laugh that filled up the whole house. People loved her immediately. She walked into spaces and people turned to look. I was different. I was the one who sat in the corner with a book. I was the one who got good grades but never got applause. I was the one who helped with dinner while Maya sat on the couch scrolling her phone. I did not mind. I thought that was just who I was. My parents are good people. I want to say that clearly. They are not monsters. They are not evil, but they had a blind spot the size of a mountain. And that blind spot was me. They loved Maya in a way that was visible and loud. They loved me in a way that was quiet and small. And for a long time, I told myself that quiet love was still love. I kept telling myself that right up until the day I found out about the party. It was a Tuesday evening in March. I came home from work around 6:30. I had a long shift at the hospital where I worked as a medical assistant. My feet hurt, my back hurt. I just wanted to eat something and go to bed. I walked through the front door and I heard music. I heard voices. I heard laughter coming from the backyard. I thought maybe my parents had some friends over. I put my bag down and walked to the kitchen window to look outside. What I saw stopped me completely. There were balloons, pink and gold ones. There were streamers. There were tables covered in food. There were maybe 30 people standing in our backyard. My aunts, my cousins, family friends, people I had known my whole life. They were all there. They were dressed up. They were smiling. And right in the middle of all of it was Maya in a white dress holding a glass of lemonade and laughing at something someone just said. I stood at that kitchen window and I could not move. I just stared. My own family was having a party 20 feet from me, and nobody told me it was happening. I pushed open the back door and stepped outside. The music kept playing. The conversations kept going. A few people glanced at me and smiled politely the way you smile at someone you do not really know. My Aunt Linda gave me a small wave. That was it. My own mother was standing by the dessert table talking to a neighbor, and she looked up when I walked out. She did not rush over. She did not say anything. She just looked at me for 1 second and then looked back at her conversation. I walked over to my dad. He was at the grill. He looked up and said, "Hey," and then turned back to the burgers. I said, "What is this?" He said, "It is a little celebration for Maya." I said, "When did this happen?" He said, "Your mother planned it a few weeks ago." He said it like it was the most normal thing in the world. He said it like I was asking about the weather. I stood there for a moment, and then I said, "Was I not invited?" He stopped flipping the burgers. He got quiet. He said, "We figured you knew. We figured Maya told you." But he could not look at me when he said it. I walked back inside. I sat down at the kitchen table. I did not cry. I was too shocked to cry. I just sat there in the empty kitchen while the party went on 30 feet away. The music was loud enough that I could feel it in my chest. I could hear people laughing. I could hear Maya's voice rising above everything else like it always did. I sat there for a long time and I thought about every birthday party, every school play, every graduation where everyone clapped a little louder for Maya than they did for me. And I finally stopped lying to myself. This was not a mistake. This was a pattern. I went upstairs. I texted my cousin Priya because she was the only person in that backyard who I actually trusted. I said, "Did you know about this party?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Did you know I was not told about it?" There was a long pause. Then she said, "I thought that was weird. I thought you knew and just did not want to come." I put my phone face down on my bed. I stared at the ceiling. Even the people who cared about me assumed the worst about my absence instead of questioning why I was not there. That hurt almost as much as the party itself. The party went on for 3 more hours. I stayed in my room the whole time. At one point, Maya knocked on my door and opened it without waiting. She was still in her white dress. She had a paper plate with cake on it. She held it out to me and said, "You missed the whole thing." I said, "I know." She said, "Mom and Dad thought you would figure it out." I said, "How was I supposed to figure it out?" She shrugged. She said, "I do not know." She said it like the whole thing was slightly amusing. She left the plate of cake on my dresser and walked back out. I did not touch the cake. I sat there in the dark for a long time. I thought about leaving. I thought about packing a bag and going to a friend's house, but I did not do that. Instead, I got very quiet and very still. Something happens to you when you are hurt enough times by the same people. You stop reacting loudly. You start watching carefully. And that night, I started watching. Over the next few weeks, I noticed things I had ignored before. My parents talked about Maya's future constantly. They were helping her save for a car. They were looking at apartments for her close to our neighborhood. They were planning a trip for her birthday in June. Maya was always the subject of the conversation. I was always the one listening. I tried to bring up my own plans once. I was thinking about going back to school to become a nurse. I had been researching programs. I brought it up at dinner one night. My dad said, "That sounds expensive." My mom said, "We will have to think about it." Then they went back to talking about Maya's car. I picked up my fork and kept eating and said nothing. That was when I started talking to my grandmother more. Her name was Nana Ruth. She was my mother's mother. She was 78 years old and she lived about 20 minutes away in a small house she had owned for 40 years. Nana Ruth was sharp. She was funny in a dry, quiet way. She did not miss a thing. I had always loved her, but I had not always made time for her the way I should have. After the party, I started visiting her every Sunday. I would bring her coffee, and we would sit on her porch and talk for hours. She knew something was wrong. She did not push me. She just waited. One Sunday in April, I finally told her everything. I told her about the party. I told her about the kitchen window and the balloons and my dad flipping burgers and not being able to look at me. I told her about Maya bringing me cake. I told her about the nursing school plan that got buried in a conversation about a car. By the time I finished talking, I was crying. Nana Ruth sat very still and listened to all of it. She did not say, "Your parents love you," or "I am sure they did not mean it." She just sat quietly for a moment, and then she said, "I know." She said it in a way that made me look up. She said, "I know, Sarah. I have seen it for a long time." She reached over and took my hand. She said, "I want you to hear something. I want you to listen carefully." She said, "I have been planning for you for a very long time." I did not understand what she meant. I asked her what she meant. She said, "Not yet." She said, "When the time is right, you will know everything." She squeezed my hand once. Then she changed the subject. I thought about that moment for weeks. What did she mean she had been planning for me? I did not ask her again. Something told me not to push. I just kept visiting her every Sunday. I kept showing up with coffee. I kept sitting on that porch. And every week she seemed a little more tired than the week before. She was not sick exactly. She was just getting older. She moved more slowly. She napped more, but her eyes were still sharp. She still remembered everything. In May, Nana Ruth called me on a Wednesday afternoon. She asked me to come over. She said she needed to show me something. I drove over after work. She was sitting at her kitchen table with a large brown envelope in front of her. She pushed it toward me and told me to open it. I sat down and I opened the envelope. Inside was a stack of documents. There was a letter on top written in her handwriting. Below that were legal papers, official ones, with signatures and stamps. I picked up the letter first. It was handwritten on her nice paper, the kind she only used for important things. I started reading. She had written it carefully. She said she had watched me my whole life. She said she saw every time I was overlooked. She said she remembered the school play when I had the lead role and my parents left early because Maya had a stomachache. She said she remembered every report card, every small victory that went uncelebrated, every moment I sat quietly while the room buzzed around my sister. She said she wanted me to know that she saw me, that she had always seen me. Then she explained what the legal papers were. Years ago, before I was even in high school, she had set up something called an irrevocable trust. She had put money into it over time. Every birthday gift she skipped. Every Christmas she gave a small present instead of a big one. Every tax return, every little bit she could save. She had been quietly putting money away for me for over 10 years. The trust was in my name only. Nobody could touch it. Not my parents, not Maya, not anyone. It was mine completely, and it had grown over the years into something I was not expecting. It was enough to pay for nursing school in full. It was enough to put a down payment on a small apartment. It was enough to change my life. I looked up from the papers. Nana Ruth was watching me. I could not speak. She said I did not tell your mother because she would have tried to split it. She said that with no anger, just with honesty. She said, I love your mother, but I know her. I knew she would say it was not fair. I knew she would say Maya deserved half. She said I did not want that. This is for you, Sarah. All of it. Only you. If this story hit you somewhere deep, if you have ever been the one in your family who was overlooked, the one who never got the party, the one who sat in the kitchen while everyone else celebrated, then you already know this feeling. Subscribe so you never miss a story like this. A new one drops every week. Tap the bell so it comes straight to you. I sat at that table for a long time. Nana Ruth made tea. I read through every page of every document. I asked her questions and she answered every one. She had worked with a lawyer years ago, a friend of hers who she trusted. Everything was legal. Everything was clean. Everything was real. I was not dreaming. My 78-year-old grandmother had quietly spent over a decade building a future for me because she watched my present and decided I deserved more. I drove home that night in complete silence. I did not turn on music. I just drove and thought. I thought about how love does not always announce itself. Sometimes love is quiet. Sometimes love is a brown envelope on a kitchen table. Sometimes love is a woman in her 70s who watches carefully and plans slowly and says nothing until the right moment. I thought about all those Sunday visits and realized she had been checking on me, making sure I was still okay. Waiting until I was ready to receive what she had been holding for me. I did not tell my parents right away. I sat on the information for about 2 weeks. I needed to be sure. I needed to feel steady. I did not want to walk into that conversation angry or shaking or in tears. I wanted to walk in calm. I wanted to be the quietest person in the room when it happened, so I waited. During those 2 weeks, I did 2 things. First, I called the nursing school I had been researching. I made an appointment to visit the campus and talk to an admissions counselor. Second, I contacted a real estate agent about small apartments in a neighborhood I liked. I did both of these things quietly. I told no one in my family. I just started moving. Slowly and carefully, like someone who has been waiting a long time and finally has somewhere to go. The nursing school visit was on a Thursday morning. I took the day off work. I sat across from an admissions counselor named Ms. Patricia who had kind eyes and a very organized desk. She walked me through the program. She told me about the application process. She told me about tuition. When she gave me the number, I did not flinch. I had already done the math. Nana Ruth's trust covered it with room to spare. I told Ms. Patricia I was very interested. I told her I planned to apply. She gave me a folder full of information and said she looked forward to hearing from me. I walked out of that building and stood in the parking lot for a moment. The sun was out. It was a warm morning. I breathed in once, and then I got in my car and I drove to see the apartment. The apartment was on the 3rd floor of a small building near a park. It had 2 windows in the bedroom. It had a little kitchen with white tiles. It was nothing fancy. But it was clean and it was quiet, and it had a door that locked, and the key was something I could hold in my hand. The real estate agent showed me around, and I walked through each room slowly. I stood in the empty living room, and I thought about what it would feel like to come home to a space that was only mine. A space where no one forgot to invite me because there was no one else to invite. Just me, making my own choices, planning my own life. I put in an application for the apartment the next day. I went to see Nana Ruth that Sunday like always. I brought her coffee. She asked how I was doing. I told her about the nursing school visit and the apartment. Her face changed when I told her. It did not collapse into emotion. She just smiled a small, slow smile. The kind of smile that means I knew you would do this. The kin. D of smile that belongs to people who planned for a future and lived long enough to see it start. She said, I want to be here to see you graduate. I said you will be. She said, I mean it, Sarah. I said, I know you mean it, Nana. I covered her hand with mine. We sat quietly for a while after that. The kind of quiet that is not empty. The kind that is full of everything that does not need to be said out loud. The conversation with my parents happened on a Sunday evening. I had thought about how to do it for a while. I did not want drama. I did not want it to become a screaming match. I just wanted them to know. I had thought about not telling them at all. I had thought about just leaving quietly and letting them figure it out. But something in me needed them to understand. Not to punish them. Not to hurt them. Just to let them see clearly. I asked them both to sit down after dinner. My sister was out. It was just the three of us at the kitchen table. I told them I was moving out. My mom asked where. I told her I had found an apartment. She asked how I was going to pay for it. I told her Nana Ruth had set up a trust for me years ago, and it was covering the move and nursing school as well. There was a pause, a long one. My dad said what kind of trust. I explained it calmly. I told them it was an irrevocable trust set up years ago in my name alone. I told them it was legal and it was done and there was nothing to dispute. My mom got very quiet. She looked at the table. She said she did not know anything about this. I said I know. She said she wished Nana Ruth had talked to her about it. I said I understand. But she made her choice and she made it legally and it is what it is. My mom looked up at me. She said, "Are you doing this because of the party?" I took a breath. I said, "Mom, the party is one moment in a pattern that has been going on my whole life." I said, "I do not blame you. I do not think you are a terrible person. But I have been sitting in the corner of this family for a very long time, and I am ready to sit somewhere that was built for me." She started to say something and then stopped. My dad was quiet the whole time. He did not look at me, but he did not interrupt either. I did not say anything else. I did not list every time I had been overlooked. I did not bring up the school play or the nursing school conversation at dinner or any of the 100 other small moments. I did not need to. The room held all of it without me naming it. I could tell by the way my mother sat very still that she understood. Not everything, not all at once, but enough. I moved out 3 weeks later. Nana Ruth came to see the apartment the day I got the keys. I picked her up in the morning and we drove over together. She walked through each room with me. She looked out the bedroom window at the park below. She said, "This is nice, Sarah." She said, "This is really nice." I said, "I think so too." She touched the white kitchen tiles once with her fingertips like she was checking that they were real. I enrolled in the nursing program that fall. The first day of school, I sat in a lecture hall with 40 other students and listened to the program director explain what the next 2 years would look like. He talked about hard work and long hours and the kind of caring that costs you something. I listened to every word. I was not scared. I was ready. I called Nana Ruth that evening after my first day. She answered on the second ring. I told her about the lecture hall and the other students and the program director and the feeling I had sitting there. She listened to all of it. When I finished, she said, "See." She said just "see." I knew she meant more than those 2 words could hold. I said, "Thank you, Nana." She said, "Do not thank me." She said, "Just do the work." I said, "I will." Things with my parents shifted slowly, not dramatically, not in one big conversation, but slowly over the following months things changed in small ways. My mom started calling me more, real calls, not short check-ins but actual conversations. She asked about school. She asked about the apartment. She asked about my life. It was like moving out had given her permission to see me differently, like I had become more real to her once I had my own space. I answered her calls. I kept them warm. I did not hold on to the old wounds in a way that shut her out, but I also did not pretend everything had always been fine. I just let things be what they were now. My dad came to help me hang some shelves one Saturday. He brought his drill and a bag of tools and we spent a couple hours putting up 3 shelves in my living room. He did not say a lot. He showed me how to find the studs in the wall. He handed me screws and told me when to press and when to stop. At the end of it, he stood back and looked at the shelves and said, "Those are not going anywhere." I said, "Thanks, Dad." He nodded and packed up his tools. At the door, he paused. He said, "Your grandmother always saw you clearly, Sarah." He said, "I would have paid closer attention." I did not say anything, but I kept those words. I have kept them. Maya was different. Maya took the news of Nana Ruth's trust harder than my parents did. I found out through my mom that Maya had asked Nana Ruth directly if there was money for her too. Nana Ruth had said no. She had said the trust was for Sarah and it has already been given. Maya apparently was upset for a while. She said it was not fair. But after a few months she seemed to settle down. We are not close in the way sisters on television are, but we are not cold. We text sometimes. She told me recently that she is applying for a job she actually wants. I told her I hope she gets it. I meant it. Nana Ruth turned 79 the spring after I started nursing school. I threw her a party, a real one. I planned the whole thing. I called the family. I made a list of her favorite foods. I ordered the cake from the bakery she has loved for 30 years. I decorated her porch with yellow flowers because yellow is her color. I invited everyone who mattered to her, and I made sure nobody was left out. She walked out to her porch that day and stopped. She looked at the flowers and the table and the people standing there for her. She looked at me for a moment. I was standing near the door. She walked straight over to me first before she said hello to anyone. She held both of my hands. She said, "This is beautiful." I said, "This is the least I could do." She said, "No." She said, "This is love." I said, "Yes. That is exactly what it is." She stayed at that party for 4 hours. She talked to everyone. She laughed more than I had heard her laugh in years. She ate 2 pieces of cake and made no apologies for it. I watched her from across the porch at one point and thought about the brown envelope on the kitchen table. I thought about 10 years of quiet, careful saving. I thought about a woman who could have spent that money on herself and chose not to. I thought about the kind of love that works slowly and in private and does not need applause. I finished my first year of nursing school with strong grades. The coursework is hard. There are days when I am up studying until midnight. There are clinical hours that leave me exhausted, but I have never once wanted to quit. Every hard day feels like something I chose, something I built. And there is a difference between exhaustion that comes from your own life and exhaustion that comes from being invisible inside someone else's. One takes from you, the other builds you. I know the difference now. I am writing all of this down because I want to remember it. I want to remember the kitchen window and the balloons. I want to remember sitting alone at the table while the music played outside. Not because I want to stay angry. I do not. But because those moments taught me something I will carry the rest of my life. They taught me that the people who love you most do not always make the loudest noise. Sometimes the person who loves you most is the one sitting quietly on the porch, holding a cup of coffee, watching you carefully, and planning for a future you cannot see yet. Nana Ruth is still with us. She is slower now, but she is here. She asks me about school every time we talk. She asks about the apartment. She asks if I am eating well. Last Sunday she asked me if I was happy. I thought about it for a real moment before I answered. I said, "Yes, Nana, I think I really am." She said, "Good." She said, "That is all I ever wanted for you," and I believe her completely. That has always been all she wanted. Not applause, not gratitude. Not to be proven right about anything. Just for me to be okay. Just for me to have a floor to stand on that no one could take away. I still bring her coffee every Sunday. I still sit on her porch. The conversations are slower now, but they are deeper. She tells me things about her own life that she never used to share, about her own mother, about her own quiet battles, about the times she was overlooked too. It turns out being invisible runs in our family on her side. Except somewhere along the way, she decided it would stop with me. She decided she would be the one who finally saw clearly and acted on what she saw. That is what I want to leave you with, because this story is not really about a party. It is not even really about the trust or the nursing school or the apartment. It is about a 78-year-old woman who paid attention for 10 years, who kept her mouth shut and did her work and made sure that one person in her family would not have to fight for a place to stand. That is the story. Everything else is just what came from it. When I graduate from nursing school, I am going to frame my degree and hang it above the shelves my dad helped me put up, right in the center of my living room. And every time I walk past it, I will think of Nana Ruth at her kitchen table. I will think of the brown envelope and the white tiles and the yellow flowers on her porch. I will think of a love that was quiet and careful and completely real. And I will feel the weight of what it means to be truly seen by someone. Not for what you look like, or how loud you are, or how much space you take up, but for who you actually are and who you are capable of becoming.